PNG Electoral Commission announces preparations for election 2017. ABG President concerned with level of support, and lifestyle diseases on the rise in East New Britain.
This is National MTV News with Hope Imaka.
Hello and thanks for joining me for Monday's news. The PNG Electoral Commission has commenced preparation and planning for the 2017 National General Election. 15 provincial election managers in the country are now in Port Moresby for the week-long workshop. The preparations target 5 main areas described as crucial by the Chief Electoral Commissioner, Patilius Gamato.
The first 5 areas include the challenges PNG EC encountered in the 2012 elections, the increase in the number of candidates that will be contesting, and financial issues surrounding the nomination of women candidates.
All of us were one way or the other involved in the 2012 and 13 national and LLG elections. During those elections, there were international and local observers who observed the elections and wrote reports to describe how the elections were conducted in Papua New Guinea.
Gamato says observation reports on the coordination of previous elections submitted in Parliament states that there were poor reporting from provincial election managers and suggested the need for adequate training of election officers.
I will be taking tough actions against officers, especially returning officers, who try to shortcut the process and make illegal decisions to suit candidates without observing the rules and the regulations in conducting elections.
Thus, Gamato announced that there will be transferal of election managers when necessary to ensure the elections run smoothly. Now, because the public has a high expectation on the coordination of the 2017 National General Election, PNG EC will also be demanding a high standard of electoral duties from its election offices in the country. Tekla Gunga, National MTV News.
Chief Electoral Commissioner Patilius Gamato says there is no time to create new electorates in the country. This is because the 2017 National General Elections are only 16 months away and the PNG EC will be focused on the election itself. He made this comment following Prime Minister Peter O'Neill's suggestion to divide up few electorates before the elections.
Commissioner Gamato described the Prime Minister's idea as a good suggestion, but says PNG EC needs more time to conduct reports before they can be approved in Parliament for the creation of the new open seats. He explained that under the organic law on the national and local level government elections, the proposal will interfere with existing open electorates, which means electoral boundary reviews have to be conducted. But in this case, no review has been carried out due to financial constraints.
My view is that because of funding and timing constraint, this issue should be carefully looked at after the 2017 national election and pursued by the Boundaries Commission.
Meanwhile, Gamato responded to Morobe Governor Kelly Naru's comment on the vote of no confidence on the Prime Minister on MTV News last night. Naru called for a review on the government's system to allow for people to vote for the Prime Minister instead of the PM being voted by members of Parliament.
The time that we are going through now does not permit for the vote of no confidence motion to be introduced and let alone to essentially get a change in government.
However, the Chief Electoral Commissioner says those matters will be looked at after the elections as the EC's focus is on the coming elections.
In all the three views, they have merits and can greatly improve the electoral system of Papua New Guinea. But what I'm saying is that 2017 national and LLG election are just around the corner. And so to initiate such major constitutional reform, it may be misunderstood, mishandled, and misinterpreted when election is just around the corner.
Tekla Gunga, National MTV News.
Concerns have been raised over the level of support to the autonomous Bougainville government by the national government. President of the Autonomous Region of Bougainville, Chief Dr. John Momis, when speaking to MTV News, claimed the actions of the national government, including the withholding of funding to the ABG, was not in line with the Bougainville Peace Agreement, the agreement which formed the basis of the ABG. He said the perceived deliberate actions of the national government were dangerous, adding that he would be discussing this issue with the national government through the proper channels.
A perceived lack of support from the national government has been one aspect that has continued to hamper the efforts of the ABG in effectively carrying out its roles. ABG President Chief Dr. John Momis recently discussed this with National MTV News, saying the current conduct of the national government through its agencies left a lot to be desired.
Yes, I'm somewhat disappointed. And unfortunately, this seems to be a trend in the recent past, because the Bougainville Peace Agreement requires compliance with the national government and the compliance with the ABG.
This is not the first time that the ABG has been vocal about its treatment by the national government, which the President says is binding under the Bougainville Peace Agreement.
The two governments must jointly and collaboratively implement the Bougainville Peace Agreement. And the Bougainville Peace Agreement doesn't only deal with the referendum issue, it deals with restoration, it deals with delivery of services, post-crisis, and more importantly, it deals with building a new socio-economic political order, which will be culminated once you've had the result of the referendum, either way.
President Momis is optimistic that issues can be resolved in an amicable manner, whether through the joint supervisory body meetings or through direct contact with the national government ministers at the political level.
Politics is about engaging people who may not totally agree with you. So be it, that's okay. But it doesn't stop us from talking, from conducting dialogue, especially with a sense of integrity and honesty.
Merabatulo, National MTV News.
Still in Bougainville, Justice Colin McKyle today dismissed the election petition case filed in the National Courts of Buka. This case was filed against the sitting member for Lato constituency in the Bougainville House of Representatives, Christopher Kenna. Justice McKyle ruled the motion handed up in court is upheld and the petitioner shall pay the second, third and fourth respondents' costs on solicitor-client basis to be taxed if not agreed. The court also ordered security deposit of 2,000 kina be paid by petitioner Patrick Leslie towards satisfying the fourth respondent's legal costs. Bougainville's acting electoral commissioner, George Manu, said the court's ruling on election petition cases shows there were no sinister activities taking place and election was conducted in a free, fair and transparent manner. This case is one of the two disputed cases registered following the completion of the 2015 ABG general elections. The four-day APEC Transportation Working Group meeting started today in Port Moresby. It is the 42nd meeting of its kind. Chairman Nick Brown said the meeting's aim is to further the goals of the APEC. Mr. Brown said the gathering of a collection of economies where good practices can be shared was important in striving to reach common goals.
Representatives from the 21 APEC member economies began their APEC Transportation Working Group meetings today. The media was allowed in for the opening plenary. Secretary for the Department of Transport, Roy Mumu, welcomed the delegates. He said PNG, as a diverse and geographically challenged country, recognizes the importance of transportation as an enabler of trade and economic prosperity. Thus, he said PNG looked forward to the outcome of the meetings.
We look forward to this TPDWG 42 to provide the basis and understanding on the best focus areas that PNG can invest in terms of infrastructure developments, financing options, and best practices in relation to aviation, maritime, and land transport.
A short video was shown to highlight PNG's preparations towards hosting the main APEC Leaders Summit in 2018. Chairman Nick Brown said holding such working group meetings was significant for APEC member economies in sharing good practice as well as in experiences for the greater good of the region.
We can pursue common goals, we can work with each other, we can set up projects, we can do research, we can share knowledge, we can capacity build. And all of that activity takes place. Certainly it takes place outside of these meetings, but it really is brought together and given a lot of impetus when there's a series of economies, there's a grouping of economies.
This is also the first time for the International Convention Center to be used. It's the venue where over 200 APEC meetings will be held prior to the main summit in 2018. Deli Waigeno, National EMTV News.
Recent medical reports in East New Britain province have indicated an increase in diabetes and other lifestyle diseases. But the health system in the province is already facing challenges as it can't cater to this increase adequately. Dr. Al Maha from the Maravut Resource Center at the Nonga General Hospital says the only way to measure control this increase is to educate the people through awareness.
The recent statistics provided by medical experts have indicated that lifestyle diseases have increased in the East New Britain province. While there are necessary expertise in hospitals, diseases like diabetes and heart-related diseases are left unattended to as hospitals prioritize other medical conditions. This means that a diabetic patient may be diagnosed and admitted to the hospital, but once discharged, the routine checkup of the patient by medical staff is not consistent.
They no longer need medications.
Dr. Al Maha and his team from the Disease Control Unit at the Maravut Resource Center at the Nonga General Hospital is trying to fill this void that government-run health institutions can't adequately cater to.
Most of the hospital deals with acute illness, like malaria, for example. You get sick, you come, you get treated for 2 or 3 days, and then you're better, you go home, you don't come back. Whereas with disease control, we focus on those diseases that need long-term treatment, and also those diseases that cannot be cured, so they will be on treatment for the rest of their lives.
Currently, there are an estimated 24,000 diabetic cases and about 84,000 cases of hypertension or simply high blood pressure reported in the province. While the ongoing awareness of these lifestyle diseases may not appeal to individuals, its impacts can be devastating.
A lot of our people now have had a leg cut off. We have a lot of people who have had both legs cut off for diabetes. We have a lot of stroke patients who cannot walk, who cannot eat, and it's some of them, their wife or their husband sometimes has to leave work just to stay home and look after them, and this means that they are a burden on the rest of the family.
While HIV and tuberculosis have become the center of attention of the country's health system in recent years, curable diseases like diabetes have been marginalized, making it a matter of urgency that is killing people unlike any other incurable disease. Edwin Fidelis, National EMTV News, Kokopo.
Executives of the National Assembly of Disabled Persons have been locked out of their office since last Wednesday. The Assembly, which is the main mouthpiece of persons with special needs, now has no place to conduct their business. National Treasurer Benson Tegia says they were locked out because of overdue rental bills.
The National Assembly of Disabled Persons is the lead organization for people living with disability. As of last Wednesday, all their activities were grounded after their office at 3 Mile, Port Moresby, was locked by the owner. National Treasurer Benson Tegia says the office was closed because they have 37,000 kina in outstanding rental fees yet to be paid. The rent for that building is 4,000 kina per month.
Our office is located at the hospital ground, and we rent the place, and we have been renting the place for the last 4 years. The funding that we've been using to rent the property there has come from the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, from the Australian government. Unfortunately, we've been fending ourselves from donors for some time, and we have not actually felt the presence of a government.
That simply says they have not received any funding from the national government and are appealing to the Community Development Department to step in and assist.
For a government to continue to neglect funding for people with disabilities is something that we cannot accept. And there is no reason for that. And I think I want to take this time to put the government on notice, especially the focal level government department, which is the Department of Community Development, who is supposed to be doing planning and budgeting to cater for the needs of people with disabilities. I could say for the last 10, 15 years, and this has not been happening.
The lack of funding is an additional burden to the people living with disability. The National Treasurer has labeled the lack of funding as a barrier by people in authority against PWDs.
We would not like to see the authorities, the people who are framing up the policy for us, to be another barriers.
Quinten Alom, National EMTV News.
You're with National EMTV News. 8 Chinese nationals in court for counterfeit products. Morobe police focus on curbing sea piracy, and Unitech's development plans when we come back. Welcome back to the news. 8 Chinese nationals appeared before Judge Penwell Mogish at the Waigani National Court today in Port Moresby for selling counterfeit products. 7 men and 1 woman were charged with counterfeit trademarks and are out on 1,000 kina police bail each. Justice Mogish adjourned their matter to tomorrow morning, instructing them to bring their passports to the court for the hearing. The 8, who can only speak Tok Pisin and Chinese Mandarin, were ordered not to leave the city or go near the airport or any seaport. They must also not interfere with any state eyewitnesses or consume alcohol. The Supreme Court has extended its hearing on a joint application filed by National Housing Corporation tenants and former civil aviation employees regarding home ownership. Chief Justice Sir Salamo Injia made this adjournment at the Waigani Supreme Court in Port Moresby today. Erica Rupma with this report.
The hearing on a joint application filed by the National Housing Corporation tenants and former employees of the PNG Air Services was extended to Wednesday, April 6th. Chief Justice Sir Salamo Injia made this adjournment, giving time for the Energy Council to consent on the distribution of the tenants' properties. Councils for the first respondent, NHC, and second respondent, PNG Air Services, filed submissions arguing on legal grounds that they should not be entitled to have home ownership over any properties within the Granville area, including Jackson's International Airport, as it belongs to the National Airports Corporation or the Civil Aviation Services Authority. However, the appellant counsel, Norbert Kubak of Kubak Lawyers, filed an appeal to the Supreme Court staying a previous National Court ruling by Justice Terence Higgins in favor of the tenants, while effecting the orders granted by Justice Nicholas Kiriwong to proceed with the hearing. Therefore, their counsel argued on issues that there was no proper distribution of properties and denying the National Housing Corporation as not a party to this agreement. Eric Arupma, National EMTV News.
Police in Morobe are looking at deploying more policemen along coastal waters to deal with the issue of sea piracy and other marine-related matters. Provincial Police Commander Augustine Wampe says they have received a lot of reports about sea piracy and are now looking at ways to deal with it.
Sea piracy is a big problem in the coastal waters of Morobe and also in other parts of the country. The lack of capacity and resources is making police work difficult when it comes to cracking down on sea piracy. The crime has been on the increase in the province and in the Momase region. This is putting pressure on police to establish a water police unit. The unit will be responsible for marine policing and will also take charge of other sea piracy matters.
We have received a lot of reports about the sea piracy things. We got statistics for the particular offense of sea piracy.
The Provincial Police Commander Agustin Wampe, Assistant Commissioner of Police for Northern Region Peter Guinness, and UN Gulf MP Ross Simo have met with locals from the Morobe Patrol Post area to find ways they can deal with sea piracy. UN Gulf MP Ross Simo has assisted the Morobe Command with a boat in monitoring the coastal waters along the Morobe Patrol Post area.
Now looking at trying to deploy policemen from our end to Morobe Patrol Post to attach there to monitor the sea piracy.
Northern Region Police Boss Peter Guinness said water policing is one of the issues he wants to capture in his command. He will be liaising with the police headquarters to assist Morobe Command with a water policing unit as well as funding to back the command. This is to ensure that sea piracy is to a manageable level. Matalubis, National EMTV News, Ley.
5 escapees are on the run in Milne Bay Province after a jail breakout yesterday morning at Giligili Jail. Sources in Alatau confirmed that hardcore criminals were involved. An unmarked vehicle drove in, picked up the 5 prisoners and took off. Gunshots were also exchanged by the warders and the men in the getaway vehicle. Giligili Jail Commander Vincent Kundi is meeting with the task force tasked to recapture the 5 today. The information is still sketchy, but the correctional headquarters will release a formal letter this afternoon. Ley's Unitech campus will be developed into a town centre that should cater for the growing population of people in the northern part of Ley City and sustain itself as an institution. The university has approached investors in various sectors to fund different development components according to their interests. Bethany Harriman with this report.
Ley's Unitech solely relies on government funding for its operations. Its growth heavily relies on how much money the government allocates annually. This year, the university was asked by the National Executive Council to cut back on funding. The PNG University of Technology's administration is developing a plan to use available campus land to develop a township that will have shops, banks, business activities that will generate revenue for Unitech's long-term operations.
See that in the case of Ley, at the moment there's no modern major shopping centres, whereas in Port Moresby there's 4 now, with Vision City, Waigani Central, the 2 on the waterfront. So there's the potential for a centre of that nature to be developed on the university campus, with cinemas, with grocery and so on. So this is what we see as the opportunity for Unitech in the northern part of Ley.
Paul Walters, the director of Atlas Urban Design and Strategy, has worked on a plan for Unitech, and he says the master plan is designed in a way that will suit interested organizations in all sectors to invest into the area.
Business houses and technology companies, as well as retail, so supermarkets and groceries could also be part of the town centre. A new market is also being planned as part of the master plan. So this is done in a way that invites private investment, that invites business houses to invest in the university campus. And
the plan was presented last week Friday to key players in the private sector and also top-ranking bureaucrats at a dinner hosted by Vice-Chancellor Dr. Albert Schramm. Now, the development will happen in components where interested parties will invest money over time to have infrastructure built. The aim now is to gather momentum behind a plan that will bring revenue to the university and help it develop as well as sustain itself into the future. Bethany Harriman, National EMTV News, Ley.
The Hela Provincial Hospital Board officially took over the operations of the Hela Provincial Hospital, which was partly under the care of Doctors Without Borders since 2008. Recently, the hospital board chairman and Oil Search CEO was on the ground to farewell the Doctors Without Borders team. In early March, Oil Search and the Oil Search Foundation signed 2 public-private partnership agreements with the government to provide services in the province, which includes provincial hospitals. While discussing challenges with its staff, the chairman says provision of housing is something the board will look into, but for now, other pressing matters needs to be addressed.
Get all the appointments made for the hospital, make sure all the positions are filled, and then we can start building and make it a really good place to come and work.
The 32nd Australia-Papua New Guinea Business Forum and Trade Expo will be held in May in Cairns, Australia. This year's theme is Today's Investments, Tomorrow's Returns. The Australia PNG Business Council believes the theme is a reflection of the important stage reached in PNG's economic and social development.
Last year's Australia PNG Business Forum was held in Lae and was attended by 423 participants. This year, over 800 participants are expected at the 32nd Australia PNG Business Forum and Trade Expo, which will be held at the Cairns Convention Centre from the 15th to the 17th of May 2016. The 32nd Forum will again offer opportunity to learn about business opportunities and network with senior Australian and PNG policymakers and business people. Australia is the largest foreign investor in PNG, with investments over many decades totaling around 20 million Australian dollars. Meanwhile, PNG's investments in Australia are increasing. Australia is the primary destination for PNG's exports, largely from the extractive industries. There is more room for expanding the range and destination of PNG's exports, especially in agriculture. Business groups in each country will present to government issues of policy change and administrative action needed to enable bilateral business and investment growth. Deli Waigeno, National EMTV News.
And now to our finance news. The Kina closed 20 points lower at 0.3205 US dollars in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, the Kina was buying 0.3130 US dollars, 0.4050 Australian dollars, 0.2717 euro, and 34.70 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold, coffee, and cocoa closed lower, while copra closed the day unchanged. Crude oil and copper closed lower, while palm oil closed the day higher. And on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 107.66 points higher, the ASX closed at 7.22 points higher, and the All Ordinaries closed at 6.91 points higher. Here with Monday's news, EgyptAir victims recall hijacking, fresh evidence on tax havens in Panama, and Australia urging Britain to stay in the European Union. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the news. Crew members of the hijacked EgyptAir plane recalled their 7 hours of ordeal of the incident to receive praise from many for their professionalism in the face of terrorism and for the company's good conduct. Speaking on Sunday at a press conference, they said although the hijacker's suicide vest turned out to be a fake, they took the threat very seriously and all the time had put the passenger's safety above everything else.
The most important issue for us was to secure the cockpit. It's a red line to us, so that the hijacker would not approach. The second was to guarantee that the passengers would not panic. And finally, we must have considered the bomb as a real threat.
The hijacker, Saif Eldin Mustafa, is a disturbed man by divorce from his wife and played out the suicide bombing incident. The crew members said according to their training, they had two options: subdue the terrorists or negotiate. and they decided to negotiate while keeping in constant contact with the company headquarters.
We tried to elongate the negotiations to the longest possible way. We were confident and trained on that before. So we knew that the long period of negotiations would put the hijacker under stress, mentally, psychologically and physically.
When the hijacker started to get tired, I knew we had him. For 7 continuous hours he was talking and negotiating while standing in the galley at the back of the plane. He then went to sit down. That's when I knew it was over. I told myself we are safe now.
In the end, the terrorist gave himself up and all the passengers were safe.
During this hijack, I had many concerns. The passengers' safety, the planes, but mostly I was concerned about Egypt. What will the headlines say?
Vanessa Knight, EMTV World News.
An investigation led by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists has reportedly resulted in the release of the so-called Panama Papers. The Panama Papers detail 4 decades worth of tax havens for suspected money laundering, arms and drug deals, and tax avoidance.
More than 11.5 million documents from the files of law firm Mossack Fonseca, based in the tax haven of Panama, were leaked on Sunday, revealing details of hundreds of thousands of clients. The documents are at the center of an investigation by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, the German newspaper Sazitsky Zedeng, and more than 100 other news organizations around the globe. ICIJ is the international arm of the Center for Public Integrity. The leaked Panama Papers cover a period over almost 40 years, from 1977 until as recently as last December, and allegedly show that some companies domiciled in tax havens were being used for suspected money laundering, arms and drug deals, and tax avoidance. Vanessa Knight, EMTV World News.
The former British colony of Australia wants Britain to stay in the European Union, Foreign Minister Julie Bishop said on Friday. This comes weeks before Britain holds a referendum on EU membership.
Bishop said that she told British Prime Minister David Cameron of the Australian position at a meeting in Washington, D.C. on the sidelines of the Nuclear Security Summit.
While Australia acknowledges that the referendum on Brexit is a matter for the British people, Australia believes it would be in our interests if a strong United Kingdom remained a part of the European Union. The EU is a significant trading partner for us. A strong UK as part of the European Union would be in Australia's interest.
Britain's entry into the common market in 1973 was widely considered a betrayal in Australia, upending decades of tradition and a host of tariff agreements. But now Britain takes only 2.5% of Australia's exports, while China takes more than 31%. Britain holds a referendum on EU membership on June 23rd. Vanessa Knight, EMTV World News.
You're with National EMTV News. We'll have the latest with the PNG Pukpuks, the SP PNG Hunters, and the end of the Impetus Cup. In Trukai Sports coming up next. Don't go away. The values and the strengths that the national team has shown over the last 50 years has allowed for them to be recognized by mineral resource company Interoil. This was made known today by Interoil representative Thomas Nador as the squad prepared to leave for international duties. The Interoil PNG Pukpuk Sevens team departed for Hong Kong this afternoon to participate in the HSBC Hong Kong Sevens tournament.
Rugby union in Papua New Guinea has a very long history, and the Pukpuks behind me have a very long history in PNG rugby. In fact, it was 50 years ago this year that the Pukpuks have first represented the nation on the international arena against, back then, I think it was called New Hebrides, which is Vanuatu, and won 47-3 from memory. So clearly the values that the game brings, the strength that the Puks have shown over the last 50 years lends themselves to some very healthy sponsorship from Interoil and others. We are very proud to be associated with the team. and we are very proud to be associated with them representing Papua New Guinea at the upcoming Hong Kong Sevens, which is a key qualifying event for the World Cup. We wish them the very best. Godspeed. I know you will do us proud. Don't go out too soon, too hard, but we will be watching with you as the game progresses.
The values and the strengths that the national team has shown over the last 50 years has allowed for them to be recognized by mineral resource company Interoil. This was made known today by Interoil representative Thomas Nador as the squad prepared to leave for international duties. The Interoil PNG Pukpuk Sevens team departed for Hong Kong this afternoon to participate in the HSBC Hong Kong Sevens tournament.
Rugby union in Papua New Guinea has a very long history, and the Pukpuks behind me have a very long history in PNG rugby. In fact, it was 50 years ago this year that the Pukpuks have first represented the nation on the international arena against, back then, I think it was called New Hebrides, which is Vanuatu, and won 47-3 from memory. So clearly the values that the game brings, the strength that the Puks have shown over the last 50 years lends themselves to some very healthy sponsorship from Interoil and others. We are very proud to be associated with the team, and we are very proud to be associated with them representing Papua New Guinea at the upcoming Hong Kong Sevens, which is a key qualifying event for the World Cup. We wish them the very best. Godspeed. I know you will do us proud. Don't go out too soon, too hard, but we will be watching with you as the game progresses.
The SP PNG Hunters beat the Mackay Cutters 34-20 last weekend at Stadium Mackay. Tries were scored by Enoch Maki, Wartovo Puara, who played in the halfback position, Ishmael Balkawa, Watson Boas, who scored a double, and Adex Wera. The Hunters will play their next match against competition leaders Townsville Blackhawks at the National Football Stadium in Port Moresby. Trukai Sports continues after the break. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. Grand finalists of the Coca-Cola Ipetas Cup, Olco Butterflies and Wabek Limers walked away with 37,500 kina each after what was a pulsating match filled with brilliant moments from both sides. The Olco Butterflies from Southern Highlands had a team of experienced semi-professional players and who were favourites to defeat a Wabek Limers side filled with development players from the Enga Mioks. Olco were the first to score and led 10 points to nil all through the first half. Limers clawed their way back in the second half to level the scores 10-all and see the match come to an end. Enga Governor Peter Ipetas decided the match would be called off, with both teams to receive 37,500 kina each as equal winners. The Simbu Warriors are still waiting confirmation on their bid to take part in this year's Intercity Cup competition. With the TNA Lions now based in Port Moresby, Warriors chairman Sam Goya is pushing for the team to take part in the Intercity Cup competition and represent the province.
Simbu Warriors chairman Sam Goya says another reason for putting a team in the Intercity Cup competition is to carry on the platform set in the Simbu province for good rugby league players to get selected and gain more recognition through the competition.
Simbu's team is a home-ground team. It's an home-grown team. We get players within our own outlets that we have, like the school boys rugby league club, the school rugby league club, Kunia Rugby League, the local club competition, Governors Cup competition, and not forgetting the Ipetas Cup competition, where it's putting a lot of impact into Simbu Rugby League development.
He also said he is confident that the team will get accepted into this year's competition, saying the province has the required facilities and has met the requirements.
There is no Diesel Cup team in Kundiawan now. And this is where we are coming in. We team bodies are the only team that has been sanctioned by the provincial government. And they've given us a sponsorship of 500,000. The members have made a commitment of 100,000 each. So the two important two areas where you would have to have before you consider this a good sponsorship and an home ground field. And Simba has got a home ground field and we've got a good sponsorship. This gives me the confidence, and that's why I have to come down here.
The Warriors have been part of the people of Simbu for a while and has more supporters in the province. Goya was also confident in saying if the bid is a success, they would take out this year's championships.
I'll tell you this, I'm the champion sponsor. 2 times I've won under my sponsorship, EPEC Cup competition. And I've won 1 cup from BD competition in Gorga 3 times. With that sort of record under me, I'm focused. I'm focused.
Elijah Levitt, National EMTV Sports.
SP PNG Hunters winger Justin Olan, dubbed by fans as one of the best wingers since the controversial departure of Gary Lowe. Justin Olan graduated with a bachelor's degree in applied physics in Papua New Guinea University of Technology last weekend. Olan surprised his teammates and a few of the Hunters coaching staff after a brief absence to attend his graduation ceremony last Friday when the team flew down to Australia for their match against Mackay Cutters. The flamboyant winger joined the SP Hunters in the 2014 season from Lace-Nax Tigers. Olan's achievement marks a significant milestone for athletes in PNG. With just 4 months to go before the Olympic Games in Rio, only half of the tickets have been sold. Philip Wilkinson, spokesman for the 2016 Rio Olympics, also said on Saturday that ticket sales for the Paralympic Games is worse, with only 12% being sold. In a bid to boost ticket sales, Brazil's new sports minister, Ricardo Leza, says they were rolling out a series of stimulus packages. One of the packages is to ask the government to purchase the tickets, especially those for Paralympic Games, and hand out among students to avoid too many empty stands during the Games. Brazil has been faced with problems leading up to the Games, including social unrest, government budget cuts, and an outbreak of the Zika virus. That story wraps up Trukai Sports for today. Up next, your weather details.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
Your weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow. In the southern region, a shower or 2 for Port Moresby and Alatau, fine for Daru and Popondetta, and mostly fine for Kerema. In the Momase region, a shower or 2 for all centres. In the New Guinea Islands, fine for Lorengau and mostly fine for Kavieng, Kokopo, Rabaul, Kimbe and Buka. And lastly, in the Highlands region, evening showers, then morning fog for Mount Hagen, Mendi, Wabeg and Kundiawa, and some showers, then morning fog for Goroka. Now recapping our main stories for tonight. PNG Electoral Commission announces start of preparations for election 2017. ABG President concerned with level of support from PNG government, and lifestyle diseases on the rise in East New Britain as health systems struggle to cope. And that's the news, sports and weather for tonight, Monday the 4th of April 2016. On behalf of the entire news team, I'm Hope Imaka. Pleasant viewing. Good night.